This is Brian Ference with MAGAMind Podcast. You can follow us on magamindpodcast.com or me on X at Brian Ference1 or True Social at Brian Ference or Gab at Brian FE. And of course, Rumble. I won't tell you my username there. You can just search for it, brianference.com. With me today, I have Melinda Yarbro from Legislative District 15. Say hello, Linda.
Hello.
So, Linda, maybe can you give us just a little bit of background about yourself? Maybe what positions you hold in the Republican Party in Arizona currently.
Yes, and just to clarify, it's Melinda. I answer to all of them, so it doesn't.
What did I say?
Linda.
It's I said okay. Linda. I think I meant to say Melinda. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. It happens.
Melinda, did I say your last name correctly? Yarbro.
Yeah, you did. Yes, you did.
Melinda Yarbro. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
That's okay. It's fine. So last February, I became an appointed PC, and then I became a delegate. I think that was like in April, and then I did state committeeman. So I'm because I did get elected, so I was official in October as an elected PC, and then I signed up for the state committeeman and got voted in, and so that was I really enjoyed that. I enjoy going to the meetings and the people you meet along with it.
Wow, that's good. That's nice to hear that someone enjoyed the the precinct committeeman, state delegate, process. Sometimes some people don't necessarily enjoy all the process, but maybe.
Well, that's true. You got to go with the right frame of mind for sure.
That's right. That's right. Anyway, so I want to show something on my screen first. Let me go ahead and share this. So for my viewers, this is a resolution in Legislative District 15, and it's not too long. I'm just going to read it. It says LD 15 calls upon Arizona State Legislature and elected government officials to take action resolving mismanagement, maladministration, and interference rampant in Arizona elections. Whereas on November 13, 2024, 120,843 ballots remain uncounted, whereas on November 12, 2024, Cochise, Maricopa, and Yavapai County elections, infrastructure experienced mechanical malfunctions. I witnessed that firsthand. Whereas chain of custody was broken due to ballot affidavit envelopes not being counted when collected from vote centers, except on election day. Whereas Maricopa County Recorder announced approximately 27,000 mail-in ballots set aside for curing, whereas the Arizona Secretary of State reported 218,000 registered voters lacked documentary proof of citizenship. That's definitely true. There was a lawsuit about that. Whereas voters were turned away or forced to vote provisionally because of misinformation in their files, and whereas thousands of contacts were made for voters to cure envelopes with no or questionable signatures. Now, therefore, be it resolved that to secure our elections, we hereby urge all legislators and government officials to make the following necessary changes, including, but not limited to, 1, verification and cleanup of the voter rolls, including proof of citizenship and eligibility. 2, limit the number of days for voting as per the Constitution. 3, limit the use of mail-in ballots to only those with a proven need. 4, stop or monitor involvement of third-party organizations, Runbeck, Dominion, USPS, etc. 5, require proof of chain of custody for ballots, documents, memory cards, etc. 6, limit the size of precincts to allow for hand counts. 7, promote paper ballots with limited or no use of machines. 8, establish and enforce legal ramifications for anyone attempting to interfere in our elections. 9, stop the use of drop boxes. And 10, stop the use of federal-only ballot. Is that the end? Is that the end of that resolution?
That is the end.
Okay, that all sounds pretty good to me. I like it. I like what I hear. A lot of those things are in alignment with President Trump's executive order on election integrity. And I understand, did Maricopa County Republican GOP pass something similar to this prior to this?
Yes. So they, was it MCRC, EGC, so all those initials, Executive Guidance Committee. Yes, they all voted for it.
Was it exactly the same, or were some things different?
The only thing that's different is LD 15 calls upon Arizona
Really?
State Legislature. That's it.
So you kind of took this template, which the Maricopa County Republican Committee, which LD 15 is a small part of that. It's a legislative district under Maricopa County Republican Committee, passed their Executive Guidance Committee. So that's all of their chairmen plus their elected board members and member at large. They passed it. Did that pass? Do you know the vote count?
I was told today, I do not know the vote count, but someone had told me that one chair voted against it.
Okay, so almost unanimously. And then in Legislative District 15, this was your regular Legislative District meeting. Who do you know? Were you involved in the proposal of this, the motion, or?
Oh yeah. So in April, I was going to do it in March, but we only had probably about 30 people that showed up, or 30 voting, maybe 28 voting people, not many. So it was a rainy day. A lot of people don't want to get out because, it's Arizona. We're not used to the rain. And so anyway, I thought, I'm not going to introduce it here. There's not many people here. So in April, I had it with me again, had my copies. I didn't lay them on the chair because I thought, if we don't have that many people show up, then I have to pick them all up off the chair, and it's just and not as many people here to vote for them. But we had, I think, 47, 48 people in that meeting that could vote. So when new business came up, and at this meeting, Alex Culloden spoke. It's more a campaign speech, in my opinion, but he was supposed to speak on Florida-style elections. So, all the speakers did their thing. And then we always have new business at the end. I have tried to move it to the beginning, but they like to have it at the end. So that's fine. So
just a note on that. I would recommend trying to move it to the middle. Try for the middle.
Okay. Yeah. So probably won't happen, but they don't like to change the agenda, but that's okay. So anyway, so when it came to new business, some people spoke, and I was the last one to stand up and speak. And so one person immediately just started to kind of try to discredit it, but my husband did a point of order to that it was an argument and we weren't to discussion yet. Well, then someone else wanted copies. Well, I happen to have copies. They were all shocked. So we passed out copies.
Yeah.
And then they decided to postpone it. Well, that's fine, because last year I was doing censures and they were tabling them and they even tabled them till after the election. So I'm thinking, don't you guys want to fix the election? But they didn't want to do censures during an election year.
Well, I have a question. Let me interrupt you. So when they say table something to after the election, was that for a certain meeting or?
Okay, I need to correct that. They would table it indefinitely and then I would change it up. So they made a motion. I need to correct myself there. They made a motion to suspend censures till after the election. And which my argument for that was, I thought we were trying to fix the elections and we want it fixed before we do the election, but they didn't want it fixed before the election because they had other things to do. So since I took a lot of heat for censures, I thought I'll do a resolution. So that's why I presented a resolution. And so I was satisfied with them postponing it. And when that April meeting was over, I was talking to some people and I could tell Alex Culloden was slowly walking by like he wanted to talk to us, but then he didn't talk to us. He leaned in at one point to talk to us or talk to me, and then he continued on walking. So as I was gathering my stuff and starting to walk out, Jake Hoffman stopped me and said, "Can I talk to you about the resolution?" So I said, "Sure." And he wasn't against the resolution, but he said, we can't we can't do anything about, the state cannot do anything about the federal only ballots or USPS. I said, okay. And he said, plus, he said, can I email you more suggestions? I said, sure. So gave him my email. Never heard from him though. And so May meeting came, and they had it on the agenda. So I presented it, and I spoke in favor of it twice. Someone else spoke in favor of it, and then they had, and of course we alternate because Robert's Rules of Order, and they had 3 people speak against it because they had Justin Heath.
What were their arguments against it, if I can ask?
Okay, so Justin Heath spoke at the meeting, and he was talking about what a wonderful job he's doing, cleaning the voter rolls, the signature verification, how when someone's going in there and they're clicking to approve the signature, they weren't supposed to be able to see what party the voter was associated with. So now they've removed that, so they can't scroll down and actually see the party. And anyway, all the great things he was doing, like when they would mail a ballot and on the envelope it says something about if this is not the voter's address, please, check here or something like that. And then how those ballots would never make it back to the recorders because the Postal Service, the barcode, they would just scan the barcode again and go right back to the house or, I don't know. I don't know what the Postal Service did. But anyway, that was him telling us how great a job he did. But it would have been nice if he could have looked us in the eye, but he kept looking at his feet. So I had to wonder how truthful that was. But so then when new business came around, we did some new business stuff, and then I was the last one to speak. And so one of the ladies who popped up right away said, I totally agree with you, but it needs to be fine-tuned, it needs to be updated because based on Justin Heath, and he's working on cleaning the voter rolls, and he's working on the signature verification, things are being done, so therefore it's just not up to date. And then one lady has an issue with removing the federal only ballots because of the SAFE Act. And so anyway, that was the gist of it. And then after the meeting, after they all voted, the entire board voted against it, so including our chair.
How do you know that the whole board voted against it? Do you vote with cards or by hand, or? We
vote by cards, and there was one board member absent. So there is one board member that did not vote because he was absent. But everyone that's sitting at the front, that's on the board, they all raised their cards. Yes, we were given cards, which I'm glad we did cards because last month in April, they were doing voice vote. And I think the cards I like having a count. I like knowing, how much for each, whether it's yes or no. And so they did have cards this time so that we could vote. So I did. I thought that was a good thing. So, yeah, so 29.
Sorry, let me interrupt and ask you just a question real quick. Do you know if the vote is close and let's say that the chairman rules that one side won or lost, but let's just say some people aren't too sure about that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what you would say if you wanted to challenge the vote result?
Yeah, division.
Correct. Okay,
yeah.
I just wanted to check on that because
I was prepared to do that.
It's interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was totally prepared to do that because I didn't know if they were going to bring the voice vote back.
Mm-hmm.
But they're pretty good about doing the cards. It's just they didn't have them in April.
Okay. Sounds like a good development. And I understand the vote itself was, do you know the vote total, the result?
It was 29 against the resolution and 17 for in favor of the resolution.
Let's see. Just doing some math. So you had 37% of the vote in favor of the resolution.
Yes. If
Okay.
you did the math correctly, yes. I haven't done the math on that.
Okay, and then before we get into it a little bit more, I want to share also a post that you made on X. So this is your X account at AZ Soonergal, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you're tagging President Donald Trump, or at Real Donald Trump. You're saying AZLD 15 Republicans voted down an election integrity resolution on Thursday, May 8th. And you're tagging the Senate GOP, the Freedom Caucus, which Jake Hoffman, created and heavily controls. And you're tagging at Turning Point USA and at Turning Point Action. Just a note, Turning Point Action, they actually have a little underscore at the end of their name. If you see, this is a different group. It's actually at TP Action underscore is the one you wanted to tag.
Okay, good information. Good for me to know. I
Yep.
can't keep up with all the TPs. I'm kind of
I
new
know.
to X also.
Yeah, this is some other unrelated thing that got the username first, apparently.
Okay.
And then at Jake Hoffman, during the meeting, recruited precinct committeemen PCs who spoke against the election integrity resolution. The chair of LD 15 is a Turning Point representative and voted against the election integrity resolution. So you're alleging that the chair, are you comfortable sharing the chair's name?
Yes, Cynthia News Wonder, because I think you can just look it up online anyway, the chair.
Cynthia, what's her
News
last?
Wonder?
News Wonder.
Yeah.
You're right that we can look it up, and I'll show people how to do that. If you go to Maricopa GOP.org and under leaders, under district chairman, and then legislative district 15, Cynthia News Wonder. Do you know, does Cynthia have an X account?
Yes, she does. I want to say it's like GOP RX or something like that, or RX GOP.
Well, yeah. If you have it, send it to me. I was just gonna search because sometimes she'll come up. Don't see it there. And I was just gonna look on LinkedIn. So you say that she's a Turning Point. So what evidence do you have that she's employed with Turning Point? Or received pay?
I don't really have any evidence besides she'll post on there. She posts all kinds of Turning Point stuff. Our district always has flyers from Turning Point. The PC recruitment that they're doing is Turning Point. And in fact, another PC and we were holding a meeting, not an official LD meeting, just a meeting outside the LD to discuss our proposed bylaws, because there was a lot of proposed bylaws. And in the meeting, you just don't really get a chance to really understand the bylaw. So for anyone who is interested,
I found her. Is this her?
Scroll up a little bit. Yes, that's her.
Okay, so I notice in her background she has Turning Point here, Turning Point Action.
Okay, yeah.
And then she has a link here, which is Turning Point Commit 100. So typically their employees change their backgrounds and stuff like that. She may not be an employee, but it's possible that she was paid to do ballot chasing for them. Are you aware of?
Yeah, I do know some people, because I do know that that's one thing. They're recruiting people to recall a city of Mesa councilwoman.
Right. Here
right
she is
now.
reposting a Turning Point employee. They put this Turning Point Action icon if they're a Turning Point employee.
Oh, so if they're an employee.
Yeah, well, not always. Sometimes they do. Here she is tagging Turning Point coalitions and Turning Point Action. So, or actually, she reposted that. Sorry. So it looks like, based on her banner and based on what she's posting, yeah, she's reposting, Turning Point employees pretty frequently. So it's definitely reasonable to say that she's either paid somehow or in the past has received compensation from Turning Point, and
Mhm.
certainly is a Turning Point supporter. So I'm sorry, we got sidetracked a little bit on that. So was there anything else you wanted to add on the chair and her connection to Turning Point? Because otherwise, I wanted to keep reading on your post.
No, that pretty much covers it. It's just they're
Okay.
always promoting Turning Point, and they
Yes.
wouldn't let us promote our side meeting that we were having on proposed bylaws.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and I see that she voted against it. Um, Jake Hoffman is well known to be associated with Turning Point. His company, Rally Forge, which is like a texting and marketing company, has received millions of dollars from Turning Point. That's all cited in an article. Um, so, Jake Hoffman is as closely associated with Turning Point as you can get. You're saying, it's my opinion, it was not a coincidence that the Maricopa County Recorder Justin Heap was brought in. You mentioned that he didn't look the PCs in the eyes. However, when he was in the legislature, he did nothing for election integrity. And LD15 meetings and activities promote Turning Point USA, and they like to speak in favor of election integrity. But when actually given the opportunity to vote in favor and make a statement for election integrity, they failed. The 17 PCs who voted yes for election integrity will continue to stand up to the 29 PCs who showed that they are not going to fight for fair elections. Yeah, then you have some other statements here. Man, my phone is blowing up. I'm going to have to answer some of those calls afterwards. So let's see. Hold on a second. All right. Okay, let me go. Let me go into this post though, because it got quite a lot of attention in Arizona. 31,000 views, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there was one.
It's a hot issue here in Arizona. I mean, since 2020, we've been trying to get our elections, secured, and all we do is keep getting talk. I remember in 21 when the Arizona audit was going on, and Sonny Borelli, is that how you say his last name, and
Yes.
Wendy Rogers, they're talking about watermarks on the ballots. What's happened? Nothing.
Right.
And so every year they talk about doing things. I mean, and now they use Hobbs as the excuse. They had Ducey in 21 and 22, and they didn't fix it then. So anyway, and that's another reason I became a precinct committeeman. I was just tired of just talk, and that's what they're doing now. We had Justin Heap last year when he started to run for Maricopa County Recorder. Yeah, sorry, it's late. He's blaming the voters for the way the elections are run. I was a little offended by that, and I did, post that on our LD15 Telegram chat. That particular chat, eventually, I was removed from that in September. They removed me from it. I guess they didn't like the truth.
So you were censored from your own legislative district's kind of official Telegram group?
I was. Yes, okay. I was.
And while we're on the,
I'm back on there now.
Oh, you're back on. Okay, well, that's good. I did want to share this. So this is from a T. Graham Yarbro. Is this your husband?
It is, yes.
Okay, and what he's saying is, agree, we were trying to pass bylaws to disclose major donations to the LD. It was shut down by Jake Hoffman and Turning Point USA. They control AZLD 15 executive board and were paid to travel to Wisconsin on TPUSA dollars, and another is Jake's wife. They're trying to steal the power of the PC in LD 15. So those are some, very interesting allegations. Do we know for a fact that some of them traveled to Wisconsin? I'm assuming.
Cynthia did post it on her X. Yeah, she did post it on her X. I doubt the Hoffmans went. My personal opinion, I just don't believe they went. But we all know that they're affiliated with Turning Point. Every time we go to a meeting, it's always Turning Point, Turning Point. So it's like, well, when do the PCs actually have a voice in how our districts ran? So it just feels like that we have Turning Point really controlling how we operate versus the PCs, and the PCs represent the voters. And then it also, just now that we're on the inside of it, it feels like Turning Point is trying to put all their people in important positions. Or somehow they're affiliated with Turning Point. Maybe they're not getting paid, but one of the lady who sued Michael Way, she did things for Turning Point. I don't know what she got paid, but she did get $2,000 to throw a barbecue for the voters that she got to vote. Well, I got voters to vote, and I didn't get any money to go take them on a barbecue. So, and I have a problem with her suing our Republican candidate.
Well, before we get into that issue, let me go back to something you said. So let me share my screen again. Oops, let me go to this one. Okay. So this is an article that I had written on Turning Point, and hopefully you can see on your screen. And it's talking about in Wisconsin, the Turning Point PAC made a huge amount of financial contributions, mostly to county parties. There's a lot of county parties in Wisconsin, and it was actually at least $121,000. So there's some articles. They have something called a Mount Vernon project, where they talk about, this is a quote, they want to take over the GOP party, take control of state chairs, national positions, and it's the Mount Vernon project. It's published on Turning Point Action's website. Of course, Tyler Boyer is the chief operating officer of Turning Point Action. A lot of this was backed up by many sources, including firsthand accounts in Wisconsin. But if you look at these financials, it's kind of small here, but these are all like $5,000 contributions to different counties. This is from, I think it's from Open Secrets. It's their financial reporting, and it's a total of like 41,000 here, 80,000. And what happened is they made a bunch of donations there, and then the Turning Point paid employees ran for the board, for the chair and vice chair, those positions, and they won in many cases and captured those positions. And now there's a lot of concern that some of these, again, paid Turning Point employees, they have a conflict of interest, and they're really, a special interest group that's directing, in this case, the counties to whatever Turning Point's, agenda is. And there's a ton of evidence on this. It just goes kind of on and on. I'll stop sharing. But what you're describing is in your legislative district that you're seeing the exact same thing. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I am concerned by the voters losing the power to an organization now that is dictating how we go out and do things. I mean, just like even they have this golden ticket, and those of us who I feel are grassroots, we didn't really agree with the golden ticket. And in fact, when we had a discussion on the props, and I'm not saying Turning Point was behind that golden ticket at all. Jake Hoffman had his name on it, and but like I said, all these people seem to be affiliated with Turning Point, and somehow I don't know how they get money or anything like that. It just seems like we can't do anything without Turning Point stamp of approval on it. But when we wanted to bring in, go ahead.
You said there was a bylaw amendment to disclose donations. Mm-hmm. So are donations to the legislative district being hidden somehow?
Well, I say no. Okay, so what they were actually, my husband was typing without actually going back and looking at the bylaw, because that was back in February.
Mhm.
And so what it was limiting the amount of the contribution that an elected official can make. So it was going to cap at $1,000, because some people who were on the board prior had seen like checks coming in from elected officials. Well, even at the meeting, we were told that, well, Andy Biggs gave $5,000. Why would we turn him away on that? Well, then now are we beholden to Andy Biggs? I mean, so, or do we feel obligated to not hold Andy Biggs accountable because he's given us money? And but anyway, they voted down because several people were like, well, I don't want anyone to know how much I give. But then in the March meeting, they're asking PCs, everyone on the board is given us $500 per year. And they announced that, so they didn't have any problem announcing. But in February, when it came down to arguing for that particular bylaw, they had a problem. They didn't want anyone to know how much they give. But then the next month, they're telling everyone how much they give. So I don't know.
Well,
anyway,
and let me intersperse something as well. So I don't know if people are aware, but when you donate to the Republican Party, including your legislative district, that is all tracked and reported. This is See the Money AZ. So these are AZ LD15 GOP. These are financial contributions. I'm going to sort this by highest dollar amount. And I want to see income specifically, right? So let's see. I can see right now that, Scott Ferris donated 600, Peter NL donated 500, Catherine Atwood donating 500, Delia Affey donated 500, stuff like that. So it's not hidden. It's required by law to be publicly reported. So that's there.
Well, that was their argument, was they didn't want that to be disclosed. So they didn't want you voting for that. Someone else had argued, well, we don't want to limit how much someone can give us, or an elected official, because Andy Biggs had given us $5,000.
I see that David Stanley gave $1,500. When did Andy Biggs make that donation? Because I don't see that.
You know what? I don't know. That was just one thing that was said at the meeting. I have no idea when he gave it.
Well, I would suggest checking up on some of these claims, because we just disproved, multiple ones. So if someone says something at the meeting, you should ask for evidence and try to prove it or disprove it.
I just learned about this website actually today, so I didn't even know about that. It was just one of the arguments given, against the bylaw limiting, because they didn't want to limit how much an elected official could give.
Yeah. Now I did notice something else that's interesting here. Apparently there's a PAC. So you do have an LD, which is the AZ LD15 GOP, but apparently there's also a PAC. Let's see. It might not be used anymore, though. There's a couple of them in here. It's interesting that there's so many. Yeah, they appear like they're not being actively used. Well, let's see. I'm just looking at these. Yeah, I didn't see any donation from Andy Biggs, and but there are several PACs. There's some of them are mentioning Mesa, Arizona. Some of them are mentioning Queen Creek. Is your district, is it mostly in Queen Creek, or is it also in Mesa?
It's in Mesa also, a small portion of Mesa. It's mainly Queen Creek though, but there is a small portion of Mesa.
Okay, well, yeah, I've looked through a bunch of these and I don't see any use. So unless I'm wrong, they're not using the PAC right now, but there is a PAC. So maybe only during election years or something like that. All right. Anyways, I did interrupt you a little bit, so I'm sorry about that. Keep going with what you were saying, though.
I don't even remember what I was saying.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on that. But yeah, I mean that is interesting, and I would say what you're experiencing is not a unique experience. Certainly, we're seeing that in Wisconsin, in the state party, and all the county parties. Turning Point definitely tried to run a smear campaign and influence the outcome of the AZ GOP election recently here.
Mm-hmm.
And we're hearing just everywhere that Turning Point is heavily involved in trying to take over legislative districts, counties, states, national committeemen. And it says it on their own website, the Mount Vernon Project. They literally say that's the goal of it. We see a lot of money, especially in Wisconsin, involved with that. So,
and I just want to be clear, I'm not against their messaging because they promote conservative, but I am against them controlling the party because I think the people need to control the party. If we start letting organizations control how the people operate, then we're giving up our control. And how, as you know, LD15's super conservative. I mean, it's a very red area. I wish we could get more people to participate and become precinct committeemen because we have I think we have 170 or 180 PCs, but as you know, only 47 showed up to vote. And then not only that, we probably have 300, 350, total PC seats or whatever you call them. So subtract 179, 180 from that, and that's a lot of empty seats. So of course it's kind of, I listen to Dan Schultz quite a bit, and it's just like he says, they're not scared of us, but they want us to go out there and campaign for them. And I think one thing I was speaking on was the props that we had. We had 14 props on the November ballot or something like that. I don't know. I'm not that great with the number. It's been since November, so I don't really remember. It was a lot of props, though. So our district brought in someone to speak the way they wanted us to vote on the props. Well, we didn't agree with all of them, especially the 100 props that go in the Constitution. So we wanted to bring in, when I say we, the grassroots, those of us that aren't associated with the Turning Point group, not to mean that some of those associated with the Turning Point group are Turning Point, because they're not. But I guess you would call it establishment. So those, as far as what I consider establishment, we were told no, that they brought in whoever they wanted to speak for whichever way they wanted the prop to go, and we were not allowed to bring in someone to give the other side, so that when we actually go recommend to our voters the way we wanted to, that we had both sides of it. So we had to go research our own side, and we did our own flyer and recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, what you're describing is not, it's like I said, it's not unique, unfortunately. I think Legislative District 15 was kind of long viewed as, a stronghold of, the establishment. So just the fact that you're able to get 37% of the vote, you said they're not scared of you. They probably are. They're probably getting worried. And, what I would recommend and what's worked in other legislative districts, if you want to, be able to actually use your freedom of speech and not have it unconstitutionally stripped from you, which is what they're doing, you should definitely actively recruit PCs that are of your like-mindedness, that believe strongly in, election integrity, one-day vote, no machines, hand counting, that are willing to shake things up and not just do business as usual, support the establishment, support the machine, let's vote harder, because that's kind of what they're working on. So if you can go actively around your neighborhoods and recruit and seek out other people that can help you recruit, go to businesses. It's usually not the type of person that the establishment wants. Like, they usually want someone who is, a successful business person that is connected to their community, because it's Mesa and Gilbert. I mean, there's a strong like LDS church presence there. So, it might be people that go to their specific temple or something like that. It's just an example, nothing against the LDS church. But, you want to look not for those people. You want to look for people they don't want. So if there's anyone because Mesa and Gilbert, potentially focusing on Mesa, I don't know what your thoughts are there, but more like patriotic, not to say working class, because there's some extremely wealthy, like, patriotic, keep to themselves, support freedom people, but it's just not these, polished politician types that they're going to tend to recruit. And if you can do that and then educate them all with Robert's Rules of Order, I don't know if you've seen on my website, brianference.com, there's a PCs tab and there's a Robert's Rules of Order cheat sheet. I also have videos on there of some Robert's Rules of Order training, which is really
We've been
good.
using those.
Yeah, so you should use those. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I have people that contact me because when I went to first meeting, I was actually mentored by Christian Lamar, and I'm grateful for that, because if not, I would have signed up, I would have went to a meeting, I would have listened to speakers, I would have went home. And as bad as censures are, I was glad I did it, because for the people that just went to the meetings and just sat there were some that stopped me afterwards and said, what's this about? And they didn't even know Robert's Rules of Order because they weren't being taught that. Now, like I said, we had one this last meeting, I think, where a parliamentarian did do a little bit of coaching on the Robert's Rules of Order. Dan Grimm.
Okay.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Dan Grimm.
Dan?
And, I've posted some videos that exposes Dan Grimm for just outright lying and intentionally misinterpreting Robert's Rules of Orders and the bylaws. And Dan knows it because I got him on video on that. I've got a lot of hard evidence on that. So you have to understand that parliamentarians like Dan Grimm, when they're brought in, they're there to subvert the body. They're there to push the agenda that the board wants. They're usually paid by the board, actually.
He is.
Yeah. And what that means is he is being paid to get the outcome that they want. And some of these parliamentarians have even been recorded saying that when they're paid and they want to achieve something, they have no problem lying to the body, intentionally misinterpreting Robert's Rules of Order or the bylaws, stalling, all kind of different tactics. And one of them, Michael Peck, was actually disciplined by the National Association of Parliamentarians because he was recorded and caught on tape doing just that. So, I would suggest that the most important thing you can do is educate yourself, educate the other PCs. If you buy the book, Robert's Rules of Order, it's a pretty thick book, but like I said on my website, I have the cheat sheets. That's how you can have power and through knowledge. And then what you also want to do is there's a lot of people that maybe voted against your resolution and they're not bad people, but they just do what they're told. And some people will always do that. So you don't really want that in a PC. You want to recruit ones that are critical, free thinkers. But some of them, if you send, a nice, polite, happy person to talk to them, and they just go with facts and say, hey, I know you voted against this. I understand your kind of line of thinking, but did you know like these facts? Did you know this details? Did you know about this information? And there's a certain percentage of them that they will actually consider that if it's presented nicely to them. You got to be nice. And you're not trying to sway their vote. You're just giving them information. And some of them will say, hey, wait a minute, am I being told the truth by this establishment, by this board, or am I being told lies? And if you do all those things together, and of course through wisdom and discernment, which comes through the Holy Spirit and through Jesus Christ, you can and have in many other places overcome that, and you can do it as well. So,
you have to wonder if we were able to do a secret ballot, which I have requested that before when I've done censures. I'm sorry?
That's a valid motion. A PC can request a secret ballot.
I asked that of the chair, and I got shut down. So
what did he say?
I'll have to look at the email. Well, one was we needed, in case, since we're elected officials and we represent voters, if one of our constituents came in and wanted to know how we voted, then our record would be available. Well,
that's a lie. In Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised edition, 12th edition, sections 30 and 45, it says, this is an analysis, so I don't have it. I didn't open it up specifically, but it says, yes, Robert's Rules of Order, a secret ballot can be requested. A member of the assembly can move to have a vote taken by secret ballot. The motion requires a second and is decided by a majority vote. The assembly determines whether to use a secret ballot, balancing transparency with the need for confidentiality in sensitive matters. This can ensure members vote freely without pressure, especially in contentious or personal issues. So your chair was lying to you.
Yes. No, I knew that from the email, and I questioned him on it, and I was pretty much told we would do a voice vote. They did cards, but and then they were collecting proxies, even though our bylaws state that you have to have a ballot with a proxy. And, I got shut down on that also, but.
Oh, wait a minute. What do your bylaws state about the proxy?
You have to have a ballot, that you will be issued a ballot.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
With your proxies, yes. So to me, you have to have a ballot, not a card, but a ballot.
I know what you're talking about. So you're correct, because it actually says in Robert's Rules of Order that in the case of a voice vote, that proxies are not allowed because they're not present. They don't have a voice. It's only for like casting a written ballot. But what you're telling me is that they were doing voice votes and they were counting proxies for the voice vote. Is that right?
No. In the email, he said he would do a voice vote. But then when we got to the meeting, they gave you a card.
Well, did some people have two cards?
I honestly can't answer that. I did.
That's important to know, because if someone has two cards, then they have a proxy and they're using that for a voice vote.
Correct.
Because the card is really a voice vote. That's very tricky.
Yeah. So what we did, I did a motion of personal privilege at that particular meeting. Mm-hmm. And someone came up to me and said, well, hey, we only got 5 proxies. And but one of the PCs in my court, or who I align with, she said, no, we're still going to have a discussion on this. So we discussed it. We lost, which was okay. So we just voted by card. I don't know if they had 5 proxies. I don't know if they counted those 5 proxies or not. That was only my second. Mm-hmm. No, that was my 3rd meeting. So, that's, things that they have done before. And I request, so you have to wonder if they did a secret ballot, would the votes have been different? Even on this resolution, would the votes have been different? Because some people feel intimidated to vote. It's a small group, so they know certain people are watching.
Yeah, that's a good point. And what I would say is shine as much light on things as you can. Hold them to the rules and the bylaws and the truth. And do not just believe something. I don't care what they tell you. Say your first response should be, do you have evidence of that? Do you have proof?
That's good information.
Where does it say that?
Right.
Whatever they say, because they've been proven just in this conversation to have lied to you at least 3 times. And that's what they do. They just lie. And people don't call them on it. They're used to getting away with it.
Well, and one thing that there's another person in our LD who we've been ALA, which is American Leadership Academy. We can rent their facility or, room for $25 a meeting, whereas the Queen Creek Library, where we meet, we have to pay $81 per hour for a minimum of 2 hours. And they would rather, and it's only 2 miles away, but they would rather pay the more money than go meet at ALA.
Yeah, that's a common thing that we've seen as well.
So, but we're asking the questions, and sometimes it's, we try to get what information we can. Sometimes we're just checking out the information after the meeting too, and so we're doing what we can with our little group.
That's good, and yeah, you want to just communicate, grow it as much as you can. I do see in their expenses that Mr. Grimm was paid some amount here, so he definitely is charging.
Yes, and they haven't made that. I mean, they have presented that in the meetings, and I will. I don't want to just bash the board. The new leadership has been better about making changes. The website, we have a new website that's a little more user friendly. We're getting the minutes now. We weren't getting minutes before. So I just don't want to think that they're not.
Can I ask a question? Who is Bob Charette?
He's a PC. I'm pretty sure he's still a PC.
Did you know under your LD15 expenses that Bob Charette in 2023 to 2025 was paid at least like $4,300 from your LD? What would that be?
I'm wondering if that was like a texting service, or honestly, I really don't know. I have no idea.
There's a lot of expenses. I'll send you this link.
Okay.
You should look into it. You should just monitor it, and you should start asking questions like, what are these expenses? What are they for? How do we know that, the paid for service was delivered or the product was delivered? Just start asking questions like that is what I would recommend.
I do know that they were trying to, Turning Point would announce in our meetings, or someone with Turning Point, or maybe the chair, I can't remember, would announce that Turning Point's hiring to chase ballots, or, I'm not sure what all. It was, like I said, it was all Turning Point. I did have a friend that applied with them, but she wasn't, I guess, selected to do that kind of work.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just see just a ton of transactions to this Bob Charette. Really a lot. So it'd be interesting to know, what is that for? Why is he being paid so much?
I do know there was a couple of times I think he spoke about maybe doing texting, and I remember him speaking about there was 300,000 like Republicans that didn't vote in 2022, and how we need to go, people to. But I really don't know. I was pretty new anyway, and we didn't get any financials then.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I did send you that link. So, we talked about a couple different things, some of the concerns. If you have any questions or you need any help, you can always reach out to me, let me know. But please keep us updated. I'm particularly interested, what's going on with your LD, where Turning Point aligned or paid employees are, involved. What are they up to? What are they doing? So please do, keep us updated and share that.
Okay. Yeah. We're not meeting this summer, so.
Wait a minute. You're taking a hiatus for how long?
June, July, and August.
So your LD has decided they're not going to meet at all for 3 months, huh?
That is correct. We probably do need to have some meetings, but no, we are not meeting. At least it's not on the schedule.
That's interesting. So I don't know if you're aware, in Legislative District 4, which was run at one time by Rhino Dan Farley, who was later censured by the county Republican Party for trying to destroy the Republican Party, he called a hiatus in his legislative district for 6 months because he was being challenged for power. So he just decided he wasn't going to meet and run everything like a dictatorship.
I did hear about that. I was very new to PCs, but I would go to Christian Lamar would have trainings, and I would go to that, and I was hearing about that. Yes.
So that's one of the tactics. So in
our bylaws, in an odd year, we only have to have so many meetings. So that's what I would say. That's why they're doing it.
Well, that's allowing them to do it, but arguably, so our bylaws, we changed them. And I think even in the odd year, we still have to meet. It's something like 10 out of 12 meetings a year. So, there's business to get taken care of, and it opens it up too much to corruption and dictatorship. If they're just like, nope, we're not going to meet, and we'll just take care of everything. We won't tell you anything. Too bad. So
that reminds me. So going back to the resolution, because you remember taking time off. One of the excuses for not voting for the resolution is the legislature is closed. And Jake Hoffman was sitting on the second row, and I was watching him when I was speaking in favor of the resolution. And I did speak to the person who was calling all those things. And I mentioned the legislature can come back. Like, they're working for us, so they can come back in session, and they can also use the budget against Hobbs, which they are choosing not to do. So
that's an excellent point. An excellent point. And unfortunately, the legislature in Arizona has done very little for the last 4 years.
Correct. Which is why I'm tired of listening to lip service, which is why I presented a resolution, because I was told how divisive the censures were. So I was like, okay, well, let's do a resolution then, and now I'm the bad person for doing a resolution.
Well, see, now you're learning that it doesn't really matter what you do. They just don't like to be challenged. So it's you can't believe there's always an excuse why it's not the right time.
I had plenty of people to offer to help correct it. They could have done that after April. I mean, and plus they got the resolution a week before. So if there was anything they wanted to amend, they could have amended it.
Well, and that's one thing that I know Christian Lamar, and that's one thing that he got some advice from other people that if some of the censors aren't being accepted, you should try at least to rewrite them in a certain way. Where they can be accepted. Sometimes you have to make, compromises, things like that. And I know Christian wasn't really willing to do that, but he could have potentially been successful in some places quicker, had he done that. I've done that in places more successfully. So you should be open to hearing that. But what really gets the censors passed is if you write it in a very professional way, you make sure it's airtight, everything's factually accurate and ideally cited. And then you want very specific action, ideally with teeth behind it. And then you pre-whip the vote. So like when that's going to go to vote, you would maybe call, all those PCs that are going to be voting for it, and you would notify them and try to get their support to support it. Those steps sometimes can help, but sometimes you just have to keep recruiting. Like if you only have 39% that are going to, vote with you, you're not going to win any votes. But if you keep recruiting, then you can.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, that's understandable. I know every loss I get, I consider a win, because sometimes it just opens the eyes of a new person. And so even though the resolution, which I was really surprised, was voted down because they talk about it all the time, how they want the elections fixed, what we want done in the elections. When I talked about election integrity in my last censure in May, I had claps, I had, applause, but then when it came down to voting for it, it just did not pass. So, and that's okay. And one thing that I didn't tell you about that when I was being sworn in the March meeting last year, we're in the middle of being sworn in, and Jake Hoffman walks down the aisle to ask if we're on some kind of report or something, which my husband, like 3 times, huh? I think it was I think what he was probably, and I don't really know because, like I said, I was new. I was shocked. He was walking down during the middle of our. He was interrupting the middle of our swearing-in ceremony, and because there was 6 of us, and we were the 6 that were bringing the censure to the LD. So we're in the process of being sworn in, and he's asking the chair. He interrupts the swearing-in ceremony to ask the chair if we're on some kind of report. And I think it's the PC list that's on the Maricopa County Recorder site. Because that wasn't a bylaw then, it's not now. But he and when the chair said yes, we checked that on Monday. He asked again, "Are you sure?" Like 2 more times, and the chair was like, "Yep, they were on there."
That seems pretty rude.
Yeah, well, I was surprised. So yeah, it was in my very first meeting. I could tell at that meeting, our legislatures pretty much called the shots around there. I think it's starting to turn a little bit, though. Yeah. I mean, where the PCs are starting to stand up for ourselves.
Based on what you've been talking about, I've talked to others that have alleged that it's specifically Jake Hoffman working with Tyler Boyer of Turning Point Action. And they together, and in fact, they have like a little vetting committee. They've set themselves up like John McCain did as the kingmakers of Arizona. And if someone wants to run for legislature or this or that position, they have to get their blessing, like John McCain used to do. So that's interesting because that's like this elite like legislature class. And they decide who the representatives are, and that's really kind of fueling everything that you're seeing. And it's seeing like the golden tickets. They don't want to endorse anyone. They don't want the legislative districts to be able to endorse anyone during the primaries because they endorse during the primaries. Tyler Boyer and Jake Hoffman and Turning Point, they endorse the candidates, and you're just supposed to take those candidates, say this is your candidate. Don't ask any questions. LDs, you can't endorse anyone. They don't want the competition. So that's what's going on, and people need to realize that and how problematic that is. Especially, there's been a lot of questions about Turning Point and their ethics and their company culture and their financials. And just imagine for a moment, like maybe Turning Point did a lot of good things in the past, but what if it gets corrupt, and what if it gets taken over, and what if they suddenly don't have a good agenda anymore, like has happened with hundreds and thousands of organizations and companies and people. They become corrupt. Now they're set up with this power, and they can put in corrupt people, and you can't stop them. And that's problematic.
And that's the concern I have. And in fact, before I got kicked off the Telegram chat, that was one thing they posted on Telegram is one of the establishments posted that we need to start vetting our PCs. I was like, oh, nice. And then they also I threw out there that they need to do a censure of a PC. Well, I took that as being me. So, okay, well,
I thought censors were bad. I thought they were divisive.
I know, but yeah, so they're willing to censure me. At least they threw that on the Telegram chat. But yeah, I'm not supposed to do a censure. I guess I'm not supposed to do a resolution either. So.
Well, good. I think you're on it, on the truth, and keep pushing and let me know what support you need. And I'm sure there's lots of other people that are willing to help. And I think they're nervous. I think they're worried.
Well, I'm glad you feel that way. Anyway, we're working on recruiting, so if there's anyone in LD15, please reach out to me, because actually there's a lot of LDs out here, as you know, that they need PCs. LD14 is hurting. LD10 needs PCs. At least those are the ones out there in my area.
Right.
But as you know, it's all over. It's all over the state. We need PCs.
Right.
I think it's all over the country too. We just need people to step in. The meeting's 3 hours, and a month. And obviously, if you're in the LD15, we're not even going to meet this summer. So
yeah, I don't think that's right. And I'm going to put a link up on this screen. This is my website where I talk about which legislative district do you live in. So let me put this up. Let's see, I'm going to put it at the top and show it. Okay, so it's brianference.com, and that's kind of a long link. It's like find out which precinct LD you are in. But if you just go to brianference.com at the top in the menu, there's a PCs link. But that one there's some links that'll say like, okay, find out where you belong. And then there's another one, which is the powers of the precinct committeeman, which is really interesting. 3 helpful PC training books, PC training videos, and Robert's Rules of Order training as well. And specifically the training videos, there's a PC 101 training video. And let me show that banner up here as well. Let's see. This one, brianference.com/PC-training/videos. There's watch PC 101 training, Robert's Rules of Order training. There's a couple other ones. And then specifically the Robert's Rules of Order training, there's some additional information like a cheat sheet, talks about, various common things. So to all our listeners out there, please do check that out. Get involved in politics. And you have to understand that the battles that are happening in our U.S. Congress, where there's a bunch of rhinos fighting against Trump, that's happening at every level in the political party. It's happening at the state, the county, the legislative district, the precinct. There's all these rhinos in there, and they don't want anything to happen, anything to change, and they're fighting against,
And school board, that's real important also. I mean, we're fighting it on the school board.
Yeah, school boards, that's a whole nother thing. I mean, the school boards are so bad that I think it's at a point now that the parents need to mass pull their kids out of the school districts so that the school districts go bankrupt. Because that's the only thing that'll make them stop.
I would not disagree with that because, they're being controlled by the purse strings for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. Well, Melinda, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
But Melinda Yarbro, who's a PC state committeeman and state delegate in Legislative District 3, LD15, giving us some updates. And funny thing about LD15, before they moved the maps around, I used to be in the old LD15. So LD15 kind of has a reputation, and the county chairwoman at the time pushed, is my understanding, the number LD15 to be into her area because it was such a establishment rhino stronghold that she thought that would squash it. But it sounds like the old LD15's kicking back up, so they better watch out.
It keeps it interesting for sure, but I will say there are a lot of good people there too.
Yes, there always are. Thank you, Melinda, so much. Keep fighting. Reach out to me anytime you need any help or assistance or questions. Again, my name is Brian Ference, and my viewers can follow me on X at Brian Ference1, on True Social at Brian Ference, on Gab at Brian FE, brianference.com, and this is the MAGAMind Podcast, magamindpodcast.com, or wherever you get your podcasts, just search for MAGAMind, that's one word, and then podcast. Thank you again, Melinda, and to all my viewers, God bless, and have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you.